I never imagined my first day as a newly licensed attorney would begin with me sitting in a plasma donation center, staring at a clipboard that listed my veins like inventory and offering me $85 for a part of my bloodstream. But there I was, 29 years old, top of my class, and one missed electric bill away from having my apartment plunged into darkness. My hand was trembling as I lifted the pen. My pride had been loud for months, telling me I could survive this rough patch, that everything I sacrificed for school would eventually pay off. But pride doesn't pay rent. Pride doesn't stop utility companies. Pride doesn't keep you warm when Boston nights decide to punish you. So I exhaled, lowered the pen toward the signature line. And that was when a firm, weathered hand snatched the clipboard right out of mine. "You will not sell your blood today," a deep voice said, steady and commanding. I whipped around, ready to snap at whatever stranger thought he had the right to interfere with my survival. But the man wasn't a stranger, not entirely. He was old, sharply dressed, with silver hair combed back and eyes that held the kind of authority people don't argue with. "My name is Thomas Caldwell," he said quietly. "I'm your grandfather." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My grandfather? The man my family claimed had passed away a long time ago? The man they spoke of only in vague, hushed tones, if they mentioned him at all? I managed to whisper, "That's not possible." "It is," he replied. "And I'm here because you should never, ever be sitting in a place like this." Before I could ask another question, my phone vibrated. It was my mother, Charlotte. Her message read, "Harper, come home immediately. We're having a family celebration tonight. Don't embarrass us by being late. Typical." "No, how are you?" No concern, just orders. Thomas glanced at my phone and sighed. "You should go," he said. "Tonight will tell you everything you've been missing." I didn't understand what he meant, but I went. Brookstone Hills looked even more pretentious than I remembered. The Lewis house, my childhood home, glowed from the driveway like a mansion auditioning for a magazine cover. I stepped inside and was hit with the familiar scent of expensive candles, polished floors, and curated perfection. "Harper!" my mother called from across the foyer. "Finally! Go to the kitchen and help set up. Guests are arriving any minute." No hug, no greeting, just commands. "What exactly are we celebrating?" I asked. Before she could answer, my younger sister Bella floated down the staircase in a sparkling gold dress, twirling like she'd been cast as the lead in her own private movie. "We're celebrating me, of course," she beamed. "Daniel proposed. Isn't this incredible?" Daniel Carter, whose family practically owned half the eastern seaboard, appeared behind her, handsome, polished, and radiating money, the kind of man my parents worshipped. My mother squeezed Bella's shoulders. "We didn't want to tell you over the phone. It's a big moment for the family." The family! As if I had never graduated law school, as if I were nothing more than their background scenery. A server brushed past me, carrying a champagne tower tray. My mother shoved a stack of napkins into my hands. "Help the staff," she whispered sharply. "We can't afford any mistakes tonight." I should have walked out, but I didn't. Maybe some naive, wounded part of me still wanted to belong. Then I heard my father. His voice traveled from the living room, low and confident, as he spoke to a group of businessmen. "This wedding is going to wipe out everything we owe," he said proudly. "Finally, a way out." My stomach dropped. Wipe out what, and why did that sentence feel like a punch to the ribs? He continued, "All those years of investing in Bella are finally paying off." Investing, as if she were a financial portfolio. A cold sensation crept through me. Memories I had tried to ignore suddenly resurfaced. Every time I asked about the UTMA account my grandfather supposedly left me, my mother changing the subject. Every time I needed textbooks and was told money was tight. Every time Bella got something extravagant because it benefited the family. A terrifying thought struck me. What if they used my account, my inheritance, my future? I stood frozen in the hallway, gripping those napkins until they tore in my hands. Something was deeply, irrevocably wrong, and for the first time in my life, I felt the ground beneath my feet begin to shift. I don't know what exactly snapped inside me after hearing my father brag about wiping out his debts with Bella's marriage, but something cold and razor-sharp cut through the fog I'd been living in for years. I pulled out my phone, hit record, and let it capture every smug syllable that came out of his mouth. Then Bella joined the conversation. "Honestly," she giggled to her bridesmaids, "men don't marry lawyers. They marry faces. And I'm the face of this family." The girls laughed. My father didn't correct her. My mother didn't flinch. I recorded that too. Something told me I would need it later. An hour into the party, while everyone toasted to Bella's perfect future, I slipped down the hallway toward my father's office. I had spent most of my childhood being told that room was off limits, which only made my hands shake harder when I twisted the doorknob and felt it open. The office was spotless, too spotless, as if no real work had been done in there for years. But the metal filing cabinet in the corner hummed with secrets. The second drawer stuck for a moment before giving way, revealing a folder labeled Lewis Family Accounts. Private. My name was on the first tab. Utema, Harper Lewis. I opened it, and my breath left my body. The balance, $62,418.12. A decade ago, it had been almost $300,000. The transaction log read like a crime scene: repeated withdrawals, transfers to Belaglow Media LLC, charges from luxury boutiques, 5-star hotels, bridal showrooms, even a down payment for her wedding venue. My college textbooks? Too expensive. My rent? Learn to budget. My utilities? You're an adult. All while my family treated my inheritance like an open bar. My hands shook so violently I nearly dropped the folder. But what I found next made my knees go weak. A document stamped boldly across the top. Internal Family Loan Agreement. Lender, Utema account. Beneficiary, Harper Lewis. Guarantor, Charlotte Lewis, as guardian. Borrower, Richard Lewis, guardian. I was 29. I hadn't needed a guardian since 18, certainly not one who forged my legal rights so she could funnel money into my sister's vanity company. I whispered to the empty room, "This is fraud. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, legally, criminally, undeniably, and for the first time in my life, being a lawyer felt like a weapon." I took out my phone, photographing every page, then took the folder to the office printer and scanned the entire stack to my email. My pulse was hammering, but I didn't stop until every shred of evidence was safely backed up. The moment I hit send, a new email pinged into my inbox. Subject line, Interview Invitation, Kingsley Ward and Fox, LLP. I blinked, reading it twice. The firm was legendary: consumer fraud, corporate corruption, whistleblower cases. It was the kind of place I dreamed of but didn't dare apply to. Yet here they were, asking for an immediate interview. Maybe fate has a twisted sense of humor. The next morning, I walked into their glass-walled conference room wearing the only blazer I hadn't outgrown. The partners grilled me for nearly an hour: case law, ethics scenarios, mock questioning, rapid-fire hypotheticals. At the end, the senior partner smiled. "Harper, you don't just think like a lawyer. You think like someone who understands the cost of injustice." He slid an envelope across the table. "We'd like to offer you a position. $170,000 a year, $40,000 as a signing bonus, full medical, dental, vision, a relocation stipend." My throat tightened. My entire world shifted. When I got home that evening, I didn't celebrate. I didn't even sit down. I opened my laptop, stacked every printed document on the table, and slipped them into a thick black binder. My binder of truth, my binder of war. I ran my fingers across the cover and whispered, "You wanted a lawyer in the family? Now you've got one." And for the first time in years, I felt something stronger than anger, sharper than grief. I felt ready. 2 days after I assembled my binder of evidence, I found myself sitting across from Thomas Caldwell in a tiny diner off Tremont Street. A place so ordinary, it felt unreal that a billionaire would choose it for a meeting that would upend my entire understanding of my family. The waitress had just poured our coffee when he spoke first, his voice low, steady, and heartbreakingly tired. "I owe you an explanation, Harper. One your parents were never going to give you." I folded my hands in my lap, bracing myself. "For 20 years, he said, I supported your mother's family in silence. I bought the Brookstone Hills house. I paid your school tuition. I gave Richard seed money 3 different times to build his business. Every year I sent checks, gifts, anything they needed." I blinked hard. "They told me you were dead." "I know." His jaw tightened. 13 years ago, your mother returned one of my checks with a letter. She wrote, "We have our own resources now. We don't need your interference." That was the moment she had taken full control of your Utema. She didn't want oversight. She wanted ownership. My stomach twisted. "So she cut you off to keep everything for herself." He nodded slowly. "I didn't understand it then. I thought she simply wanted independence, but watching you in that plasma center, I realized what she'd really done. My chest tightened, remembering his hand pulling the clipboard away. So what now? He reached into his briefcase and placed a folder on the table. I bought Maple and Stone Bank's outstanding debt package last month. By coincidence, your family's accounts were included. I stared at him. You bought their debt? I bought leverage, he corrected. Enough to place a permanent red flag on your UTMA account. Every transaction above $500 now requires manual approval by my office. I covered my mouth. So my mother is trapped. He shook his head. She's not trapped. She's accountable. There's a difference. I exhaled slowly, trying to absorb the magnitude of what he was offering. Not escape, not rescue, but structure. Power I could legally stand on. Harper, he continued, I will be your foundation, but you must walk into the fire yourself. I swallowed. What fire? The dinner, he said. Your mother is planning a so-called reconciliation tonight. She intends to silence you in front of Daniel Carter. She's terrified you'll expose the financial trail before the Carters sign the investment agreement. Of course, it wasn't reconciliation. It was containment. Thomas leaned forward. You will go. You will take your binder. You will present the evidence calmly and clearly. Elaine Brooks will be there. She's ready to testify your mother forged guardianship documents. My eyes widened. Aunt Elaine agreed? She's tired, Harper. Tired of being quiet while your mother destroys everything she touches. I felt something warm surge in my chest, a small but undeniable sense of not being entirely alone. And Daniel? I asked. Daniel is their pressure point, Thomas said. Your parents need him. Once he sees the truth, he will not tie his reputation to their fraud. I pressed my hands flat against the table to stop their trembling. So this dinner becomes, what? A trial? A trial without a courtroom, he said. A verdict without a judge. And a confession without handcuffs, if they sign what you put in front of them. And if they don't? He lifted his coffee, eyes suddenly cold. Then the law will handle it. And I assure you, the law will not be as gentle as you. Silence settled between us, heavy but clarifying. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the powerless daughter, the overlooked sister, the invisible one in the room. I was a lawyer, and I had the truth. Thomas placed a hand over mine, warm, steady, grounding. You are stronger than they ever allowed you to believe, he said. Tonight, you show them. I closed my binder, feeling its weight like armor. Walking out of that diner, the cold air hit my face and, strangely, it didn't sting. It sharpened me. Tonight, I would step into my family's house not as their burden, not as their afterthought, but as the woman they underestimated. And I would make them face every lie they ever built their lives on. I arrived at my parents' house that evening to find the dining room transformed into a scene straight out of a magazine spread. Crystal glasses lined perfectly, a floral centerpiece taller than Bella, and a seating chart drawn with the precision of a military operation. They truly believed they could choreograph the night. They had no idea what was coming. Charlotte greeted me first, her smile stretched thin as piano wire. Harper, sweetheart, she said softly. I want to remind you that reputations are very fragile. If you cause a scene tonight, well, the legal community in Boston is very small. A single rumor can bury a young attorney before she even begins. A threat wrapped in silk. I took my seat without replying. My father leaned forward, clasping his hands like a benevolent patriarch. We've been thinking, he said gently, that this tension can be resolved. You apologize, drop this obsession with the UTMO, and I'll help place you in a small firm where you'll be safe, stable. You won't have to fight so hard. I actually laughed. You want me to give up my own money so you can control my career too? His expression faltered. Harper, he whispered, let's be practical. But I was long past practicality. I placed my binder in the center of the table, like a judge laying down a verdict. Let's be legal, I said. Charlotte's smile cracked. I opened the binder, turning it so everyone could see, and began reading aloud from the Massachusetts UTMA statutes. These funds must be used exclusively for the benefit of the beneficiary, I said. Not for handbags, not for vacations, not for a media company created to artificially inflate Bella's image. My mother stiffened. My father turned pale. And then came the audio. My phone speaker played Bella's voice loud enough to echo off the chandelier. Men marry faces, not lawyers. I'm the one bringing value to this family. Daniel's fork froze halfway to his mouth. Bella, you said you built your company yourself. Bella's face went white. Daniel, that is taken out of context. Oh, is it? I asked. I flipped to the internal loan agreement, sliding it in front of him. Your future in-laws funded her company with money stolen from my account. He scanned the document, his jaw tightening. Then Aunt Elaine spoke, her voice calm and firm. Charlotte forged the guardianship. Harper was legally an adult. These signatures are invalid. Daniel pushed his chair back. The scrape against the hardwood felt like a gunshot. So the independence you bragged about, he said to Bella, the business you built, it was all fake? Bought with someone else's inheritance? Bella burst into tears. Daniel, I did it for us. For our future. He shook his head. No, you did it to deceive me. And then, to everyone's shock, he stood. This engagement is over. He didn't yell. He didn't waver. He simply walked around the table, took Bella by the wrist, and said, We're done. He led her out of the house while Charlotte shrieked after them. But the night wasn't finished. The dining room door opened again, and there stood Thomas Caldwell, holding two items that froze the entire table: the clipboard from the plasma center and a letter yellowed with age. He read from it, his voice steady. Harper only needs books. Bella is the true investment, because beauty pays dividends. Charlotte lunged for the letter. Thomas, stop! He stepped back. You abandoned me so you could drain your own daughter's account. You cut me out to secure your theft. Cornered, trembling, Charlotte broke. Fine, she screamed. I invested in Bella because it was safer than investing in intelligence. Happy now? Her words cracked something open in me, something that felt like mourning and freedom at the same time. I closed my binder and spoke quietly. I'm not taking you to court tonight. Not yet. But you're going to repay what you stole. I slid a new document forward. You will return $37,1600 into my UTMA within 7 days. Bella will sign a written agreement never to access my funds again. Aunt Elaine will notarize everything, and you will sign right now. They stared at me, as if I had turned into someone they didn't recognize. Maybe I had. One by one, trembling, avoiding eye contact, they signed. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like the end of a long, bitter chapter. But even then, deep down, I knew something none of them understood yet. This wasn't the final act. This was only the beginning. The Monday after the trial dinner, I moved into a small but sunlit apartment in Beacon Hill. A place with creaky hardwood floors, warm morning light, and no ghosts of my past lurking in the stairwell. My signing bonus from Kingsley Ward and Fox hit my account that same afternoon. I paid off my student loans, cleared the credit card debt I'd been drowning under for years, and finally felt the weight on my chest loosen. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe. But one date still hovered in the back of my mind. Saturday, 5 p.m., the deadline I'd given my family. That entire week, I worked nonstop at the firm, reviewing fraud complaints and drafting motions. Every hour, I became more certain I had chosen the right profession. Justice wasn't an idea, it was a muscle, and I felt mine getting stronger. When Saturday arrived, I watched the clock with the calmness of someone who already knew the truth. At 4:59 p.m., my UTMA account still hadn't moved. At 5 o'clock, nothing changed. Not a dollar, not a cent. They had broken the agreement, again. And they thought now that I had a new life, a real job, and financial air to breathe, I would be compassionate, the same way I had always been manipulated into being. But that version of me was gone. I didn't call them. I didn't send a single text. I walked straight into the glass-walled office of my supervising partner. They breached the settlement, I said. I want formal action initiated. He didn't hesitate. Kingsley Ward and Fox drafted a summons for final settlement negotiations and delivered it directly to my parents' inboxes. They were ordered to appear at the firm Monday morning with representation, or accept that civil and criminal proceedings would begin immediately. When they arrived, they looked smaller than I had ever seen them. Charlotte's mascara had run down her face. Richard's hands shook so violently he kept sitting on them to hide it. Bella, for once, didn't wear even a hint of makeup. Then Thomas walked in with Daniel beside him. Daniel carried a forensic audit, the report he had commissioned after breaking off the engagement. It revealed an additional forged transaction, a signature of mine copied and pasted into a prior withdrawal. Enough to make sloppy embezzlement become felony-level fraud. Charlotte collapsed into a chair. "Please," she whispered. "Harper, don't send me to prison. I made mistakes, but I'm your mother." Richard sank to his knees. "I'll do anything. Just spare her, please." Bella didn't cry. She stared at me and said, almost like a vow, "I'll get a job. A real one. I'll pay you back." 3 people who had once treated me like a tool, a burden, an afterthought, now begging for mercy. I had power, real power, and it terrified me how easy it would have been to crush them with it. But destruction wasn't justice, and prison wouldn't fix what they broke inside me. "I'm not here to ruin your lives," I said quietly. "I'm here to make sure you never touch mine again." The new agreement was harsher, 50% due within 24 hours. The rest paid in monthly installments over 6 months. Every payment late or missing would trigger immediate civil and criminal action. They also had to write notarized apology letters, admitting to the theft, the forged documents, and the years of manipulation. They all signed. To secure the first payment, Daniel, now stripped of any sentiment, offered Richard a private loan in exchange for a lien on the Brookstone Hills house. My parents had no choice but to accept. When the meeting ended, I walked out of the firm into the cool evening air. Just as I stepped onto the sidewalk, my phone vibrated. A bank notification. UTMA deposit, $23,700, the first repayment. The first piece of my stolen youth finally returned. For a moment, I just stood there, letting the city sounds flow around me. Horns, footsteps, laughter, and I felt something deep inside settle into place. Freedom isn't always fireworks or triumph. Sometimes it's just a bank transfer arriving on time. Sometimes it's the quiet knowledge that no one will ever use your kindness as a weapon again. That night, I inhaled deeply. My first true breath as someone who belonged fully to herself. And I didn't look back. If you listened to this story from beginning to end, tell me, did you enjoy it? Should I write more stories like this, or explore new themes? Comment your thoughts, and let me know what kind of story you want next. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next woman brave enough to tell her truth.